So I'm going to talk about three main themes in this presentation, and it's very important that we'll pick up on this at the end. There was a presentation yesterday, a workshop yesterday, that covered a lot of this preliminary stuff. I'm still going to work through that. I think it's important that we continue with the theme, but we'll probably overlap some of the things that were mentioned yesterday. So let's start the journey with going into understanding what a mixed-use development is. Now, don't get overwrought with the definition. It's really quite simple. It's essentially, mixed use is essentially a blend of different asset classes within one community or one super tall building that has a physical and functional integration, and it's for the people. So we always forget about the people, but that's effectively what it's for. So as we move to the super talls, because this is essentially what this conference is about, I think what we've started to see is a very wide difference in what used to be a super tall building to what it is today. So I just want to explain this a little bit more. We've moved from single use to a multi-use, and I think it's an important aspect. If we have a look at this slide, what you'll see here that I think 1930 and 1931 we had the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building in New York, and they were essentially single use. Nothing changed for 60 years, essentially. And then all of a sudden in the mid-90s, we started to see retail becoming quite prominent in these super talls. But then something happened. Around about 2000, super talls became very much asset class driven, multi-use driven. So what we did here, we had a look at the last 12 completed super tall buildings in Hong Kong, China, and in Taiwan. And you'll see there, the green is the office component, if you can't read it at the back, and retail's the blue. But the first four, as you can see there, are mainly office component. And then something happened around 1999. We started to see some change occurring, and they are particular reasons why these things happened. So let's have a look at the drivers as to what drove the multi-asset classes to be created. Three main reasons. We've grouped it into three areas: government policies, commercial considerations, and operational considerations. Digging deeper, let's have a look at this. Government policies, we had town planners, urban planners from governments that actually told us, that not so much us, but certainly the owners and developers, that they had to actually create some proportions within those super tall buildings of some of the largest cities in the world. And you can either do two things. You can actually agree to do it their way, or don't do the building at all. So it was quite interesting. There was a line drawn in the sand. But then the other thing happened. The owners and developers made a decision that it's actually not a bad thing. Some of these buildings take 6, 7, 8, 10 years to build, so you can get the timing wrong. So they actually thought that it was a very good thing to have risk diversification. And the third thing was the operational considerations. So some of the operational benefit, some of the new technology, the tri-generation technologies, actually was a benefit in having these multi-asset classes within one super tall building. One of the factors that I'll keep coming back to in this talk is the human factor. So there's a question we need to ask ourselves: are all mixed-use super talls qualified as vertical communities? Frankly, I go to a lot of cities around the world, and I go to a lot of super tall buildings, and I don't feel that it is a vertical community. I feel that some of them are bland, there's no living in there, there's, you just have a destination to go to and you go and sit. Like any other building, it's just that it's a longer lift ride. So the human factor has to come into this. We've qualified the human factor into 5 elements: the walkability, the ease of getting access, the centralisation of some of the services, the design quality, very important, the compact development piece, and the variety, the absolute use of different things in your daily life that you need. And then there's some key words in the vertical community space. Interdependence, coherence. Do you feel it when you walk into one of these super tools and use a super tool? And the common way of life, which is becoming more common, as we'll see in a moment. So these are now the three factors that I mentioned before. They are interdependence and connectivity, the internal capture, it's a measurement, and also the transition lobbies. Now what we've done here is we've broken up the first one into two areas, the interdependence and the connectivity. So the degree of interdependence depends on the different uses within the building. So let's have a look at that at the moment. If you look at the left-hand side graph, you'll see there that that space in the centre is a smaller degree of independence. And let me just explain what that means. So you've got a grade A office building with grade A tenants. You've got prestigious brand retail at the bottom, generally at podium level, and you've got service departments. But they don't blend together very well. So there's a very small interdependence. Now if you look to the graph on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side I should say, that is a greater interdependence. And what we mean by that is you've got grade A office buildings, probably very good covenants within a super tall building, 5-star hotel, and very high-end retail, and also food and beverage. So let's look at that at the moment. If someone goes into that building, that super tall building, and is working in the office area and has some clients come over, they will go to one of the, either the hotel, restaurant, or they'll go downstairs into the high-end food and beverage. The tenants in that office space will also have people stay in that hotel that want to go and see their clients or indeed go and see their sister companies. And the food and beverage area and the high-end retail is also going to benefit from it. So much higher interdependence. And I think that owners and developers, and indeed managers like ourselves, need to consider that we get that right. And I don't think it's right all the time. So the benefits of a mixed-use project is 4 things. Live, work, play, shop. That's what we do in our normal life. And if we get that right in a super tall building, they actually can live in that quite comfortably in the one building. There's 4 uses serving 4 different groups, or one group of people enjoying 4 different services. The second part of that first key item is connectivity. Connectivity is a big thing. Of all the things in super tall, the transportation, the vertical transportation is the hardest. It's the highway of that building. And we've got to get that right. And I think generally it's done very well. But you need to get there quickly. So my observation of this is that you need to have 2 rides to get to your destination point. I want to take you back a little bit in time to Steve Jobs, and when he was designing the iPod, he went to his engineers and he said to his engineers, I need this iPod to actually get to the song within 2 clicks. Make it simple, because in the past you used to go around to download songs, or you had those big Walkmans, if people are old enough like me to remember, and you used to have to try and click to the song you wanted, and it used to take you forever to get that song. And the rest is history. I mean, iPod revolutionised, it was a game changer essentially for Apple, and they've obviously gone on from there. But I think that the analogy is very sound for super tall. Security. We have to have it, security. It's a pain to have security in the bottom of buildings. I don't know what you're like, but when I go to a super tall building or any building, There's normally a lineup of people trying to get access cards so I can see either a client or a tenant or somewhere else. And you've got those physical barriers on the ground floor. It's a pain. So I think that technology will catch up. My view, I remember Jim Bilger and I were in London, and we view that technology in the future will be that there will be facial recognition as you walk into a building, and if you're being a good person, you'll be able to go into the lift without any barriers and up into the lift. If you're not, the lift won't move anywhere. That's coming. And I've seen another technology in Tokyo. Brian will probably remember this, but we had, you actually can go online, and if you're authorised, you can actually put the code on your phone, and you can go up to the barrier and you put your phone on instead of having to get an access card, making it much easier. But there's a balance. It has to be stuck between connectivity, security, and exclusiveness. And we need to make sure we get that right. But I think technology will catch up and make it better for us in the future. So the second key issue is internal capture. Now, we've used this as a means of understanding how many people move around essentially a mixed-use development. Again, in London last year, Richard, you may know about this, but in London last year, we saw in one of our presentations, and please, I hope no lawyers are in the room with civil liberties issues, but you walk into a retail centre, and it could be 4 levels of retail, and they will actually show your mobile phone on this screen, and it shows where you walk in each of the shops. And they do it on the basis that as you go into a shop and spend more time, then that shop can send you a text to say there's any specials or new fashion or whatever it is. It's quite interesting. But that technology exists today. So that internal capture, it's a measurement effectively counting the foot traffic where you go in a building. And it could be potentially, if you get this harmonious mix right, the connectivity right, you actually could be in the building, for days and not actually venture out anywhere else because you've got everything in the one building. So the higher internal capture rate, the higher degree of connectivity in a building. And the third is transitional lobbies. Many of you will remember when you go to buildings, and it happens even today, you go into a transitional, you go into the foyer, you go onto another transit, if you're going in a super tall building, and they're bland. They're horrible, bland. You walk into another lift group and you go up to the destination floor. But what's happening now is that a lot of these super tall buildings are becoming very smart in design. We're starting to see an extension of the retail. It used to be at podium level. They're now moving up into the buildings and becoming much more capable of providing services to each of the occupiers. And the reason for that is that we have this transportation problem. Because if you think about it, at lunchtime or at morning tea time or whatever, some of these buildings can have 20, 30,000 people in them, and they're all travelling literally at the same time. But if you have these transportational, or in fact these transitional lobbies, and you get that right, you actually can go in and have a meal or a food or coffee. But in the past, it was just a transitional floor, and everybody was travelling at the same time. The real problem, when we do surveys, the biggest problem is the vertical transportation in their eyes, in an occupier's eyes. And it also serves as a community centre. It's fabulous. A little bit more about it. I gave you that Stephen Jobs analogy before, but we're starting to see that we don't want to have 3 or 4 different lobbies to go to, different rides to go to get to one place. What we need to do is have it very easy, accessible to your destination floor. And what we're now starting to call these transitional lobbies is sky lobbies. Shanghai Tower, for example, has 9 of them throughout the building. And they're becoming food and beverage areas. And the people don't have to go all the way down to the ground floor to enjoy, a cup of coffee or whatever. They can have it in each of these sky lobbies. I think if we get this harmonious mix right, if we're able to create the functionality, get that interdependence, bigger circle, those, you know, when we have these asset classes in one super tall building, it will actually drive a great deal of social, environmental, commercial, operational needs. But don't forget the people. The people are the ones that are going to make it. And as a property manager, if you retain your tenants, the owners are going to have a greater return on investment. They're going to have a greater ability to keep tenants happy. The tenants won't want to leave if they're happy within a building.